Hello everyone, and welcome back to Munro Live. I'm Carl, and today we're going to talk about the interior of this Kia EV6. Now this vehicle just showed up today, so we haven't really gone through it yet, but we're going to look at the interior and get some of our first impressions of the vehicle. All right, so the first thing we're going to have to do is get in, and already I have a little problem. First, I wanted to see if this was a spring-loaded door handle. It is not. Push on this side open. It doesn't stay open. Do I really need two hands to get into this vehicle? Can I do it with one? Okay, and then after I get in the vehicle, does that handle self-close? No, it doesn't. All right, well, I'll start the vehicle. Does it self-close? All right, put it into drive. Huh. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, but it's not intuitive. I can just say that. So in looking at this vehicle, if I were to describe the interior, it is a mid-level vehicle priced at $57,000, which I hate saying that that's mid-level. It should be more of a premium. But look at the interior. What are your first thoughts? Look at the overall shape of the components, the shapes of the things that you see on the door panel, the shapes of the things that you see on the center console, shapes of the things that you see on the instrument panel. If I were to try and give a word to describe it, I would say techno. That is the impression that I get with the sharp, angular lines, all of the triangles that you see created by the different components. I'm not saying it's bad. It's a look that I personally don't like, but some people really, really would. All right, our seats. The seating surface is a synthetic suede. It is not bad at all, bounded by either a leather or vinyl trim, leather or vinyl sides. Okay. The door panels, all right. This upper portion here, this is a soft touch thermoform type material. How do I know that's thermoformed? Well, just this shape. You cannot create that shape in anything that was done by hand. The armrest and then this insert here, I do believe those are just flat wrapped components. Coming down, mold in color, mold in color, mold in color. Many years ago, whenever we were doing competitive vehicle analysis, we would have little computers that would give us hundreds and hundreds of questions. And we had to sit in every seat, answer all these questions, touching everything that was in our area, tapping every surface to get a feel of your perceived quality. And whenever I was tapping things like that, I would try and say, what does that remind me of? And yes, it reminds me of another car that was red and yellow called Fisher-Price. It is done well. I can't really fault that. A mold-in color lower door carrier is very common on many, many vehicles. And I know you're paying a premium for this vehicle because it is an electric vehicle. But at $57,000, I would expect better than that. Then we have piano black. I really wish piano black would go away. I know a lot of people still like working with it, but look at this switch panel. See all of those fingerprints, all of those marks. You will never be able to keep this vehicle clean because of piano black. Notice the map pocket in the door. Now, some of these are just hard injection molded interior map pockets. Some of these would be high-end flocked materials. But if you really look at this one, this is a formed carpet panel that is then either screwed or back welded to this injection molded outer. So we have carpet there. All right, sitting in the vehicle, I'm actually quite comfortable. I like the proportions. I like how much the field of vision that I have in this vehicle. That's very, very nice to me. Now, looking at the different components, I have a large semi-curved display. I have a molded top pad, but then I have this wrapped component here. Look at the design that you see into this vinyl fabric material. It has a different design on one side of the roll as it does on the other. There's a sewn seam here connecting at the top and the bottom, and they're trying to line up the design between the two sewn seams. I'll say they did a pretty good job with this seam, but the material selection. If you were thinking about the way this material comes on a roll, more than likely that is the roll direction going within these lines. That is off on one side of the roll. This entire piece must be cut in exactly the same orientation across that roll. Whenever you have a component that has to be cut in the same orientation, you end up wasting a lot of material. It's a design choice, and it's whether or not that design feature is a big enough benefit to justify how much material they are wasting in cutting it. In looking at my controls, this vehicle has a lot more buttons, a lot more than what we're seeing on a lot of current vehicles. We do have our screens, but look, all of my HVAC is exposed. I have a lot of buttons. So we do have this semicircular display, but even with the display, we still have a lot of buttons that are left to the driver to use. So a lot of vehicles are removing the buttons, going to just having controls within the display. This vehicle has kept the buttons. And when I've been talking to different people, I think that everyone is split. Some people prefer the buttons because of muscle memory. They want to know if they're driving, they don't even have to take their eyes off the road. They know exactly where that button is within their reach, within their own muscle memory. Whereas if you're trying to adjust on a screen, every menu place changes. Whenever you make a selection, something moves and something moves. It's in a different spot. Some people just don't like that. They prefer those fixed locations, the fixed buttons. In looking at this vehicle, if these lights were not on, this is a black hole. It's black on black on black on black. Honestly, there are buttons and features here that would be very difficult to see and find without some sort of interior lighting, just because everything is blacked out. Some people like an all black vehicle. Personally, I don't. I like some sort of a contrast between the features and then the wrap. So let's look at this steering wheel construction. Now, there's a few different things happening here. We have our traditional steering wheel at the top. This is a machine applied seam. It is wrapped around the edges, but then it is hand stitched closed at the top. Continues on to this lower portion. We have a machine applied seam that wraps around the steering wheel, but then we have this other seam that's on the inside edge. So what's happening here? We know that this seam wraps around the steering wheel, stopping. We know that there is a seam between the two and that it comes out to this stainless or chrome detail. How is this working? Either this is one sewn cover that is wrapped and tucked into this location where that stainless steel trim is, then the stainless steel trim is applied, or the entire portion from this stainless trim to this inside seam is a separate component that is attached here. I really don't know which one of those is true, but I know I'm not tearing this one apart to find out. But you can see different ways of putting this together. Some people like the look of the hand stitch seam, some people don't. This method here gets rid of that, but it still gives you a soft wrapped steering wheel. So notice the center console. This center console has basically a floating pillar. Does not actually attach to the instrument panel. It sticks out in space, giving you a lot of access to the storage bin below it. Now, why is that storage bin important? I've had a lot of people in my career developing interiors come to me and say, purse management. How do I store my purse? This vehicle actually gives you a perfect location for that you can still have access. It's secured. It's not going to go flying in a hard stop. Some people really like that type of a feature. Others may not. But what else do we have underneath the center console? That is where our 12-volt electrical connections are, and that is where our HDMI or our USB ports are. That is really out of reach. Now again, maybe I'm a bad judge because I am a big guy, but trying to bend over and reach these features from my seating position, it's very, very awkward. I do have to say there is a lot of room in this glove box. A lot of glove boxes are getting narrower and narrower, really not intended to hold anything but the manual. So we have our cubby for the manual, but then we still have this very deep, very large storage compartment. I really do like that. Nothing special with the interior. It's all hard injection molded plastic. You're not getting any flocked or soft touch here. So the finishes on this center console, which let's kind of make up a name for this thing. Let's call it the Starship or something like that, extending out into space, looking techno and somewhat futuristic. We have a decorative metal detail, whether that is real metal or just some sort of a in-mold texture, not entirely sure. We have a painted side panel. We have a piano black molded centerpiece. We have our cup holder. We have some rubber inserts, fancy shifter knob, a wrapped armrest using the same material that was brought over from the instrument panel, again set on a bias angle, wrapping into a fairly nice storage bin. Again, just hard injection molded, not flocked, not a soft touch or anything like that. It is a very, very unique shape. And if we're talking about style, it is a style that some people will like. It is also a style that some people would not like. It is very, very subjective if this is something that would appeal to you or something you'd want to stay away from. To me, it is very complicated for what it is. So for my comfort in the rear seat, headroom actually is not a problem. I feel quite comfortable with my amount of headroom. Legroom is a little different of an animal, however. You'll see how high up my legs are off the front of the seat. So I'm getting no real good leg support. And with the seat adjusted for someone of my size, it's a little tight in the back, but it's not too bad for a short trip. Now this is interesting. We have our USB ports onto the side of the seat. Many years ago, I was designing a seat that was going to have USB and it was going to have HDMI and all these other things. And they were trying to figure out where to put it. And the designers wanted to put it right into the back of this seat back panel. Okay, it's easy enough, comes out of a mold, easy to put there. But then a question came up. There are North American and European standards for the shape of components and how they protrude out and how you hit them in a crash or head impact criteria. Now, the feature itself is nice and flat if I put that there. But if I'm the designer and I design a feature that takes a component, I am now choosing to put that component right here in the head impact area. And the question came up, if the designer chooses to do that, do we have to do head impact testing with that plug inserted as if it was there? So you have that plug sticking right out, you're in a crash, and you headbutt it. And no one knew the answer. And I still think that that is an open question. If I chose to put it here or if I chose to put it on the side. This one eliminates that by putting it on the side and also gets it out of your way, out of my knee room if the component is sticking sideways. So that's nice. So we have a hard seat back panel, carpeted toe kick, does have a deployable mat pocket, very hard interior finish. But look what's happening up here at the headrest. You see how forward this headrest is positioned. Now, it's a style or it's a look that I really don't like. It seems so goofy to have a headrest set this far forward. However, because of crash safety, you want that headrest to be as close to the back of your head as possible. And a seat that is designed to really lean you back, if you're trying to keep your head up straight, you do need something to move that headrest much farther forward. So that hard back panel continues all the way through this shoulder area, all the way into the headrest. So there is a lot of injection molded components through this entire assembly. We have our break off area where our seat foam can really press it away. You want any type of seat plastic to bite into your seat trim to kind of prevent that. Normally you'd want a small return flange and really sink in. But when you have a profile that is actually changing in the way it is interfacing to the seat, you can't always do that. Now, thankfully, since your shoulders should be quite far forward, if you're sitting in this thing shirtless for some reason, I don't think this will bite your shoulder, but honestly, I think there is a possibility there. As with any hatchback, nice wide access area, plenty of headroom for me to come in. But let's look at the floor. We have a nice thick piece of carpet. Okay. Underneath the carpet, I have a fiberboard material. Okay. The fiberboard covers up my storage bin. Now my storage bin actually goes quite far back. It's not very deep. So I'm wondering, why do we have this storage bin? Is this just to hide things that you want completely out of the way, even though I don't even think you could put a person here and close this if you wanted to kind of hide it? And then let's look at what happens to that carpet panel on top. Slip it back over. It slid back. It slides back and gets jammed up behind that front seat. You can kind of see the hook that was created there. If it was me, I would leave this carpet panel out. I would make the carpeted load floor of a nicer material and save the headache of having to fight around this carpet panel. So thank you for watching Munro Live and our quick walkthrough of the interior of this Kia. Now I know these videos almost seem like they're sales gimmicks and I hate the way that sounds. However, since we cannot tear this vehicle apart, we cannot go really into the details, all I can do is talk to you about what I see. And I hope you've enjoyed some of my insight and whether or not that has any bearing of your own thought process, the way you would think about your vehicle. Many years ago when I was first going into automotive, I had my first interview and my then boss asked me, what's more important, what's under the hood or what's on the interior? And I stopped for a minute and I thought, and I said, well, the only time I look at what's under the hood is when I have a problem. But I see my interior every day. And apparently that was the right answer because I got the job. But when we're looking at electric vehicles, we don't just want to focus on the electrical components. So we have to look at this as an entire vehicle, something that you would live with every day, something that you would sit in, something that you would function every day of your life. The batteries are interesting, but how often are you looking at the battery of your own vehicle? You are seeing this interior every day. So I think that it is important to really consider. So I hope you've enjoyed watching Munro Live. go ahead and subscribe, and hopefully you can see some of our next episodes. Thank you very much.